Numbers 5. Making the camp pure. The Lord spoke to Moses. He said, "Tell the Israelites that certain people must be sent away from the camp. Command them to send away anyone who has a skin disease. They must send away all those who have a liquid waste coming from their bodies. And they must send away those who are not clean because they have touched a dead body." That applies to men and women alike. Send them out of the camp. They must not make their camp unclean. That is where I live among them. So the people of Israel did what the Lord commanded. They sent those who were not clean out of the camp. They did just as the Lord had directed Moses. Sins against others must be paid for. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the people of Israel. Say to them, suppose a man or woman does something wrong to someone else. Then that person is not being faithful to the Lord. People like that are guilty. They must admit that they have committed a sin. They must pay in full for what they did wrong, and they must add a fifth to it. Then they must give all of it to the person they have sinned against. But suppose the person has died, and suppose there is not a close relative who can be paid for the sin that was committed. Then what is paid belongs to the Lord. It must be given to the priest. A ram must be given along with it. The ram must be sacrificed to the Lord to pay for the sin. All of the sacrifice gifts that the people of Israel bring to a priest will belong to him. Sacred gifts belong to the man who gives them, but what he gives to a priest will belong to the priest. The test for a wife who is not faithful. Then the Lord spoke to Moses again. He said, "Speak to the people of Israel. Say to them, suppose a man's wife goes down the wrong path, and suppose she is not faithful to him. She has sex with another man, and suppose what she has done is hidden from her husband. No one knows she is not clean, so there is no witness against her, and she has not been caught in the act. Suppose her husband becomes jealous, he does not trust his wife, and she is really not clean. Or suppose he does not trust her, even though she is clean. Then he must take his wife to the priest. He must also bring an offering. It must be 8 cups of barley flour. The offering is for his wife. He must not pour oil on it, and he must not put incense on it. It is a grain offering for being jealous. It calls attention to a person's guilt. The priest must have her stand in front of the Lord. He must pour some holy water into a clay jar. He must get some dust from the floor of the holy tent, and he must put it into the water. The priest must have the woman stand in front of the Lord. Then he must untie her hair. He must place in her hands the offering that calls attention to a person's guilt. It is a grain offering for being jealous. The priest must keep the bitter water with him. It is the water that brings a curse. Then the priest must have the woman take an oath. He must say to her, suppose no other man has had sex with you, and suppose you haven't gone down the wrong path. You have kept yourself pure while you are married to your husband. Then may the bitter water that brings a curse not harm you. But suppose you have gone down the wrong path. While you were married to your husband, you have made yourself unclean. You have had sex with a man who isn't your husband. At that point, the priest must put the woman under the curse of the oath. He must say, may the Lord cause your people to call a curse down on you. May he cause them to speak against you. May they do it when the Lord makes your body unable to have children. May this water that brings a curse enter your body. May it make your body unable to have children." Then the woman must say, "Amen, let it happen." The priest must write the curses on a scroll. He must wash them off in the bitter water. It is the water he will have the woman drink. It is bitter water that brings a curse. It will enter her body, and it will cause her to suffer bitterly. The priest must take from her hands the grain offering for being jealous. He must lift it up and wave it in front of the Lord. He must bring it to the altar. Then the priest must take a handful of the grain offering. It is an offering that calls attention to a person's guilt. He must burn it on the altar. After that, he must have the woman drink the water. Suppose she has made herself unclean. She has not been faithful to her husband, and she has drunk the water that brings a curse. Then it will go into her body. It will cause her to suffer bitterly. It will make her body unable to have children. Her people will call a curse down on her. But suppose the woman has not made herself unclean, and suppose she is free from anything that is not clean. Then she will be free of any guilt, and she will be able to have children. That is the law about being jealous. It applies to a woman who has gone down the wrong path. She has made herself unclean while she is married to a husband, and it applies to a man who becomes jealous. He has doubts about his wife. The priest must have her stand in front of the Lord. He must apply the entire law to her. The husband will not be guilty of doing anything wrong, but the woman will be punished for her sin.